You ask 100 drone pilots, and 99 of them will tell you that they'd rather be out in the field flying than back in the office dealing with paperwork. But still, the administrative functions like writing bids and getting mission information from the customers is a necessary evil if you want to stay in business. And that's why I'm excited to be joined today by Justin Kyser, whose experience with his service company, Digital Sky, helped him see the need for a tool that would streamline the process of taking client mission information and compiling all of that information into an easy-to-use dashboard for the service provider. So without further ado, Justin, hey, welcome to the Drone Academy podcast. We're glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So I mentioned that you're from Schedudrone, and we'll get into that a little bit because I think you have a few other things as well that you work on, and I'd love to dig into those. But let's start back at the beginning. Help us understand a little bit about how you got into drones.
Yeah, so I guess I've always kind of had an interest in aviation, I guess you could say. Back as a kid, kind of wanted to always be a pilot. When I got into high school, I guess things had kind of, that interest had kind of been put on a back burner, I guess you could say. And when I got into high school, I got a job working at the local airport down in southeastern Nebraska. And a flight instructor contacted me while I was there, bumped into him. He's like, hey, have you ever wanted to fly an airplane? I was like, well, yeah, who hasn't? And he's like, oh, well, let's go on an introductory flight. And I was just hooked from there. So went on, got my private pilot's license at the age of 18, still in high school, and then decided I didn't want to go work on the family farm. And so I went to flight school right after high school, where I got my instrument rating and then my commercial license, and then got to the point where I was like, okay, I could do sort of the flying thing full time. I could go on and teach people how to fly, build up hours, and then maybe eventually get into an airline. Or I could go get my bachelor's degree, so that's what I decided to do. Moved back to Nebraska, went to the University of Nebraska and got my bachelor's in business administration, and while I was there, I had just kind of thought, well, hey, I'd tinkered with these drones while I was down at flight school. A couple buddies of mine had some, and so we just kind of messed around with them. It was the Parrot AR drone, I think, at that point. And so we would fly those, crashed a few of them, fixed a few of them, and then kind of turned that into a thought about, well, what if someone would do drones kind of as a business, and did some research, and no one really had done anything like that in Nebraska or really the Midwest at that point. This is back in 2014. And so I started the first commercial drone business from what I could find in the state of Nebraska. Researched all the laws and all that good stuff. And then just kind of went from there. Found a co-founder for a company that is now Digital Sky. And from what we can tell, we are probably the largest drone service provider, at least in the state of Nebraska, and potentially even in neighboring states as well. So we've been full-time doing that for about 2.5 years now.
So you started that then after the switch to Part 107, or did you operate under the 333
So we operated
as well?
before Part 107. We were under the impression, we were one of the guys that were like, well, 333, it's kind of a gray area. If we don't do anything terrible, no one's really going to probably try to shut us down. And so then we got the letter that everyone gets from the FAA that says, hey, you need to get your 333, and we're like, I mean, I'm a commercial pilot. I've never crashed anything. I've never hurt anyone. And so we'll just keep doing it safely. So we did. And then when Part 107 came around, it was a night and day difference. It kind of brought that whole legitimacy, I guess you could say, to the entire industry. And so we were really able to kind of come out of the shadows and say, hey, we're here doing this. We're really good at it. Let us help your business leverage drones. So
Yeah, certainly, and obviously, I would imagine having your Part 61 and your commercial rating, that helped certainly at least be able to understand how to navigate the airspace a little bit more safely.
Yeah, definitely.
So
it was almost a kind of like like we had talked to the local FSDO, and they weren't really even sure really what 333 was, and so they're just like, well, I mean, yeah, you're a commercial pilot. You've proven that you know what you're doing. You've shown us in the laws like what you're doing isn't really illegal, so just don't hurt anyone, basically is what they said at that point.
And I know, you know, even still today, there's still some ambiguities in the laws, and people try to find little loopholes and here and there. It's a lot better than it was, certainly, but there's still a lot of room. So you were working with what is now Digital Sky, building that up, and so how did you get from working as a service provider to identifying the need for what is now Schedudrone?
Yeah, so I guess back in 2016 it would have been, I had an idea for a software platform that the goal of that platform was to help drone service providers transfer sort of the finished product to their client, and we're focused pretty heavily on mapping. So providing an interface where any client or any drone service provider using any sort of mapping or map processing software, whether it was Pix4D or Drone Deploy or any of the others at that point, could take the files, drop it into one system, and their clients could then see all of that information on their smartphone. And back at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot of drone pilots really heavily doing mapping, which is a problem if you're trying to build a business around that. And so we didn't have a huge market. But one of the things that we had built into our app was this request tool. And it turned out that more people were interested in that request piece of it than the actual sort of data transfer piece. And so we kind of put that on hold for a little bit, kind of rethought how we were going to do it. And then the idea for Schedudrone came about where, I mean, what if we could help streamline sort of the whole business processes of these drone service providers and allow them to get out and do what they actually like to do, which is fly. And I think, I mean, I know for sure that's really what I had been looking for since starting Digital Sky, because I'm not a guy that likes to be on top of billing. Like, that's important. I'm not a guy that likes to sit behind a computer and type up contracts. Like, those are all things that I don't like to do, but they're very necessary to run the business. And so that's kind of where Schedudrone comes in eventually, and hopefully helps run those things.
While we're talking about Schedudrone, let's take a quick look and see what the client sees when they go to your custom Schedudrone URL. So from the map here, they can search using an address or a zip code or a city, or they can just click and drag the map. Then by creating points on the map, they can outline the area that they need to be serviced. Now that could be a single point, correct, for a house, or a series of points like we see here for a larger area. And then they can click and drag to resize or reshape that and then submit it. And once they fill out some basic customer information, as well as the date, time, and type of job that they need performed, then they submit that, and what happens next?
And so how that kind of works from there is the request comes in and it shows up on what we call the overview page for that service provider, and that's basically just a list of their most recent, I guess, requests that have come in. They can go in and then click on the request and see, like a better view of what that request is. It'll organize it and show kind of the client contact information. It'll put some notes in there as to what the client wants with the request, and then it'll show the different types of services that the client has requested as well. And with that, the services that these service providers are putting into their Schedudrone account, that's unique to them, and so they can input their own base pricing with that as well. And we don't show that pricing to anyone. It's just simply a way for us to sort of handle some of the calculation that they would need to do when putting together a proposal or an estimate. So we'll do that for them. They don't even have to get out a calculator if they don't want to. So it's just kind of a tool where any service provider can sort of help automate their business if they want to.
So then Schedudrone is essentially like a personal drone base, like an individual for one company, like, because it takes in the requests, it allows the user to put in information about what their mission is, and then it provides that data to a pilot to just say, okay, now go fly this mission right now. But it's all self-contained. It's for a single company.
That's a pretty good analogy.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about it like that before, but yeah.
As a Part 107 pilot myself, and I do some commercial work, it's the writing contracts, the billing, the all the administrative functions that are absolutely necessary. And I have some clients that are like, well, you know, I need this area, but I don't have the address and I don't know exactly what it is that I need you to shoot. I just know that I've got this project and I need some work on it at some point.
That's one of the areas that was so frustrating for me at the beginning of Digital Sky, is we would get calls from like commercial realtors or like people who sell agricultural land. I don't know what to really call them, rural realtors, ag realtors, I don't know. And they would say, okay, we need this area flown. It's 3 miles south of Lincoln, and then you take County Road 44 4 miles, and then it's just off to your left. Well, okay, that's great, but that doesn't really help tell me where it's at. And so that's kind of where the whole request map piece comes into it, and really helps people see clearly what their clients are wanting.
Nice. Now, if for instance, and this is digging into the weeds a little bit, we can touch on it in a minute, but if somebody, for instance, has like a KMZ file that has the location mapped out, is that something, can they upload it to Schedudrone and just say, this is the area that I need done, or do they have to manually enter?
Right now they have to manually enter it, but in the very near future, we do want that to be a feature that we can handle. We at Digital Sky, we fly sense-fly mapping drones a lot, and one of the things you can do is import KML files into the flight planning software. And so if we can allow people to download sort of the shape files and load those directly into a flight planner, that just streamlines the process even further. So we definitely do want to be able to incorporate sort of existing workflows that people might have into sort of our feature offering, but it's not offered right now, but will be in the near future.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah, it's anything you can do to streamline that process from client to pilot, to finished product is obviously the goal. So
For sure.
That's really neat. So how has your work with Digital Sky influenced or kind of driven your product development process for Schedudrone? I know you mentioned that you found certain pieces of it were more popular than others, but how has your personal experience flying kind of helped shape that?
It definitely has. I would say the master plan of Schedudrone is very much something that I wanted. I guess our long-term goals for the software is something that I think will help me as a drone pilot. And my thought process is, if we can get enough people who like what we're doing, who can help us sort of steer this product in the direction that other drone pilots want it to go, we're only better off because of that. And so, yeah, in the planning process of sort of the original Schedudrone vision, it was very much a product that I was looking for my own use, and the fact that other people can use it only makes it better.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, trying to get more and more people to buy in on it. Is there a specific industry that you're seeing now that's maybe adopting it more quickly? Agriculture, construction, is there any one type of job that you're seeing more of?
I mean, we don't really keep numbers on what type of work people are doing. So that's hard to say, but I know there are a lot of people that are using sort of the shape feature that we have on there. So that would kind of make me assume that they're mapping pilots. But I mean, that isn't necessarily the case for everyone. I would say that's definitely one of the stronger use cases, is having the ability for the client to go in and outline an area that they're wanting a service in. So I would say, if I had to guess, it would be mapping of some sort.
Do you see anything as far as what you're experiencing? Because obviously you have a service company as well. Do you see anything trending upwards in regards to the number of requests? I mean, obviously you're Nebraska, right, Midwest, so you probably see quite a bit of mapping and agriculture. Do you see anything other than that starting to pick up?
It's kind of getting to the point, the industry is where it's becoming something where people are going to have to find their sort of niche, like market that they want to work in. Digital Sky, we started out as kind of the guys who would do any service, essentially. And so, I mean, since then we've narrowed our focus down into video production and mapping for engineering firms. Video production mostly for, I guess, industrial or construction type companies. They seem to like that a lot. And it's not really even like site update video. It's just like, let's go out and produce a company brand video for this construction company. That's kind of what we're sticking with. But I mean, it is, I think, getting to the point where you've got a lot of people that are coming into the industry. And so, I mean, that's kind of driving prices down, just basic economics. But the people who are able to adapt and sort of find their niche and find what they're really good at are the ones that seem to be doing the best out of anyone out there.
Yeah, it certainly seems like, you mentioned an influx of talent. Obviously, it's super low barriers to entry. It's $150 for your Part 107, and then maybe $1,000, $1,500 for a Phantom, and then you can get started, right?
Yep.
Like that's it. And so I've seen, at least in my experience, it seems like certainly in the real estate markets and some of the lower just basic photography and cinematography, that seems to have absorbed a lot of that entry level work, and the prices there have certainly seen a tumble. I think I saw the other day there was that article. It said average drone pilot sees 90% cut in pay, and that may be true certainly in some areas of the market, especially if you don't have an established niche like you said, but it doesn't seem like that's playing out amongst the more specialized, the guys that I know that have multispectral and hyperspectral imagers are still doing very well. The guys that I know that have the high-end equipment, the M210s, even the Inspire 2s, who can actually shoot some really good stuff, they're still doing pretty well.
And I mean, that plays to, I guess, our advantage at Schedudrone, because if your prices are being lowered, or I guess the revenue that you're able to generate as a service provider in an oversaturated market is being lowered so much, you have to then perform so much more work to be able to break even or even generate a profit. So you're wanting to spend less time doing those administrative tasks, which is where we will come in and help.
Yeah. And so to that end, do you have any stories or any, maybe examples of a specific client who's been able to really expand their offering or, increase efficiencies through using Schedudrone?
Yeah, I mean, we get all sorts of people who will message us on our Facebook or send us emails and just kind of tell us, hey, got my first request through the other day. It worked perfectly. We loved how it showed us exactly where we needed to go, or we love how it calculated out our cost exactly how we wanted it to. I think one of my favorite sort of, I don't know if it's necessarily a testimonial, but there's a guy out of Ireland who had joined on pretty early on, and then kind of his interest seemed to kind of level off, and then he got back into it, and we have Google Analytics set up on the back end, so I can kind of see how many hits people are getting on their request pages. And he had a week that was just really up, like trending up, and so I emailed him. I was like, hey, you've got a bunch of traffic on your request page right now. what's going on? He's like, oh, I just pushed it out to all my client base, and they're all loving it. They're using it, and I got my first request through. And I was just like, oh, that's awesome. Like, how'd it work? And he was just loving it. And I don't know. It's just good to hear that it's working for people, and it's good to see that we're able to help them, I guess.
Hold on. So we'll go back to that. You're able to go back through and see how many requests people are getting through. So how are they pushing that out to clients? Like, are they advertising like, hey, I have this new scheduling system, or are they mandating that their current customers use it and it just makes it easier for the customer?
It really depends on the user. What we will kind of encourage is for people to just link to their request page from their existing website or social media. That seems to work pretty well. Yep. Yeah, like on our digital Sky page, we've got a request service like link at the top, or I guess button at the top menu, and then we'll just throw in some other like request buttons randomly throughout the website. But we found that's worked pretty well. There's been a few people that I know of who have done kind of like an email announcement or social media announcement about their request page, I guess. And so that will drive some traffic to it. But yeah, it's kind of a thing that you can fit into your existing workflow, I guess, wherever you want to, whether it's something you send out to someone after they've sort of made contact with you, or you put it as sort of that front door when someone has a request for you. It's just kind of up to the user, I guess, however they want to incorporate that.
And so you mentioned that they had access, they could white label the back end or the request page. Is that something that there's just like a editing tool that they use, or do you guys help them set that up as part of an onboarding process, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's located just on the sort of the admin page. If you scroll down to the bottom of the admin page, there's a section that says upload your logo or change the header color, I guess. And so it's just those two pieces right now. We're about 3 weeks, I would say, away from launching our second version, which is going to include quite a few more, I guess, customizations that people can make.
So are there any teases you want to give out there as to what they can expect?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're all about transparency. We want everyone to know where we're going with this. But we've had requests come in from people that are using the tool that have said, hey, I want to be able to customize the questions that I ask people when they hit the submit button on my request page. And so we're like, okay, well, let's build a form builder. And so that'll be a piece that will help drone service providers sort of, I guess, make their operation more efficient, help them get better information from the people that are requesting services from them. Another thing that we do sort of on our end is when someone submits a request on a request page, we just kind of send them a generic email that says, hey, your request has been sent to such and such drone service provider. They'll get back to you as soon as they can. What we're going to do now is allow people to customize that email for themselves. They'll be able to put their logo at the top or an image at the top and write sort of a standard message in their own wording inside sort of that protocol, I guess. So that's another thing. Just a few more customizations like that. Another thing with version 2 we're doing, which is really important, we are allowing, I guess, requesters to plot multiple items on a request. Right now, just because the way our database was set up before, you could only have like one shape or one, I guess, map point or one line per request. Going forward, they could potentially plot as many as they wanted, which will be great for the real estate pilots out there. Their clients can go on and just drop pins all over the map if they want to, and then submit that as one big request. So, and with that, they'll be able to choose different services per pin rather than, or I guess per map item we call them, rather than for the entire request. So
based on the service provider's predetermined specs that they've given you, you then will build a price.
Yep, exactly.
For the client, correct?
I mean, we build the price for the service provider, and then it's their task to show that to the client. But the request, I guess, portal, you could call it, is really kind of the first step in our whole vision, in order to be able to generate estimates and proposals that can be automatically sent to these clients that are submitting requests. We need to have that information for the project. And so once we're able to really fine tune the request side of it, we can move into being able to generate estimates, PDF estimates or PDF proposals, which the pilots can then go in and kind of add in some of their own wording into. And then from there, we can move on to things like generating contracts, invoices, and then billing, and then hopefully delivery of, I guess, the finished product. So.
Final product. Okay. So eventually, then you'll get back to the original vision of a full scope, full service portal that gets scheduling and deliverables all in one place, which is, I think, that's an exciting vision.
Yep.
So you mentioned earlier about the kind of drones you fly. What's your fleet made up out of?
At Digital Sky, for our video stuff, we primarily use an Inspire 2. We're working on getting an X7 for that, which should be fun. But
are you flying the X5S right now?
Yep, that's what we're using right now. We've got a Phantom and a Mavic, and we have a couple of fence-fly mapping drones for those clients, but I think the Inspire 2 is definitely my favorite. We use that one quite a bit, but it's kind of fun. At Digital Sky, so my co-founder went to film school in LA. He's been involved in film his whole life, and with me being in aviation for most of my adult life, it's just kind of a perfect match. So it's fun. I learned way more than I thought I ever would about film, and he's learned way more than he thought he ever would about aviation. So it's fun. But
so he's not a drone guy then by trade. He's a filmmaker or a cinematographer.
Yep. He flies, but not to the level that I do. That's kind of my responsibility when it comes to projects. But I guess when he moved back from LA, he was a creative director for kind of a local news station and produced all of the TV commercials for all of their advertising clients for probably 5 years. So that's kind of his background and his expertise, and I don't really care to mess with that. So it's a good fit.
Inspire 2. So are you have you played around at all with like the M210 or any of the Matrix series?
We haven't. We're debating getting one. We do quite a bit of flying for the local, I guess, the state Department of Transportation when it comes to bridge inspections, and so we're kind of debating on whether or not we're going to get one of those. We use the Inspire 2 for that, which is kind of nerve-wracking flying it between like bridge trusses and things like that, but definitely test your skills. But yeah, we might get one, we might not. It just kind of depends on how things go this year.
It's not a cheap piece of equipment, but it sure is pretty. So what kind of advice would you give to a new pilot just getting started out in the industry? Maybe they've got no experience in aviation at all, and they got a drone and they think I'm gonna do this for a living. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would definitely say figure out kind of what kind of niche they want to work in. Maybe do their research, figure out what competition there is in the area and kind of what those people are doing before they really dedicate themselves to doing one type of service. Back when we started, it was very easy for us to say, hey, we can work with you to do whatever you want with drones, because there was really no one around doing anything like that. And so I think now it's gotten to the point where you really have to pick what you want to do and get really good at it so that you compete with the others that are very good at offering that service as well, if you really want to generate some decent revenue. So I would say definitely focus on that.
So find a niche and build up your skill set in that, and then obviously sign up for Schedudrone, right?
Yep, for sure. We want to help you succeed. We want to help you be more efficient and spend your time more wisely. So go to Schedudrone.com. You can sign up for a free 15-day trial there. And we've actually even set up a discount for your members and your listeners, so they can just enter the code DA25 when they sign up for a subscription. It'll give them 25% off their subscription for life.
Well, Justin, man, thank you so much for joining us and talking a little bit about what you've got going on. Schedudrone is a great tool. It helps you get out to the field and make more money as opposed to sitting in the office doing paperwork that nobody likes to do anyways. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I highly recommend it. Go to Schedudrone.com and use DA25 in the coupon code to get a 25% discount. And that's just for our viewers. So, Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
And thank all of you for joining us as well. Have a good one. Take care.